Barakatuh. My name is Muhammad Mujahid Sandan. Alhamdulillah, when Maulana approached me for the course, Allah placed it in my heart to accept. It's not easy always to stand up and speak in front of everybody. It's not as easy as what Maulana and Sheikh makes it look in the Masjid. But inshallah, hopefully I'll be able to impart some knowledge, little knowledge that I do have, and share amongst whoever is present. So the mandate given was to share criminal law and capacity within the Masjid environment. So I'll try to make it as practical as possible so that everybody can follow and try and apply it in your everyday environment in which you are working. Now, within the madrasas and the maktabs that we do have, you are always working with children. And it is so unfortunate that, there's no special law or act in the South African law that deals with madrasas or maktabs or any form of religious schooling as such. The South African law expects that the law in general must apply to each and everybody. That's where the basis comes from, or the saying comes from, being equal before the law. And so with this background, I want to try and share with you the law as it stands, and how we can impart it in our madrasas, in our masajid, and so forth. Because more and more we are finding that, and especially with the younger generation, I hope that doesn't make me sound too old, they're very quick to say, I'll phone the police. You can't hit me, I'm going to make a case against you. Not only for our ulama or for our muallimas and so forth in the madrasa, but even to their own parents. So once you know what the law is and how the law can be implemented, you know what the boundaries are for you to follow, inshallah. So topics for discussion that we'll have is the Constitution, the legal age for culpability. Culpability is just a legal term for accountability or responsibility that the child can take. The new Child Justice Act. I've just concentrated on Section 54 of the Criminal Justice Act and an amendment over there that's taken place that affects everybody. Definitions of offences and specific offences against minors to be prosecuted in the specific courts. So I think we always start with the basis. We all know our constitution is our Holy Quran and the Sunnah of our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Be that as it may, we have to follow the Constitution and the law of the land. So you'll note from the law of the land that Section 28 of the Constitution is the starting point when dealing with any matter that involves children. So Section 28, subsection 2, unequivocally makes it clear that a child's best interests are of paramount importance in every matter concerning the child. The above-mentioned provision is entrenched in the Bill of Rights, and anything that infringes the rights set out is unconstitutional unless justified by Section 36, the limitation clause. It's against this background that all law concerning children should be interpreted. So, essentially, what Section 28 says is that, and binding on or in our law, is that each and every court, whether it's a district court, regional court, high court, Supreme Court of Appeal, or your constitutional court, a children's court, whether it deals with a divorce matter and custody is an issue of minor children or maintenance is an issue for minor children, that is the upper guardian of each and every child. Now, what is the definition of a child? I should have included that there. It's anybody under the age of 18 years old. That law has been changed a few years ago, where it used to be 21 within South Africa. It's now been reduced to 18 years old. So each and every court is the upper guardian of a child. So if we take Section 28, and you've got a madrasa, and in your madrasa you say, what's an example? If you don't learn your sabak, 3 lashes for you, out. In each and every form. Don't be duped into a situation, and we've had the situation already, where a madrasa teacher says, no, I gave the child 2 shots, the parent gave me permission to hit the child. It doesn't work that way. You cannot cede corporal punishment to anybody else, which means you can't give it to anybody else. So if a parent comes to you and says, Appa, he or she is not learning, deal with him. I'm giving you the right, you can give him 1 or 2 smacks. That cannot work. You cannot hand over the right to corporal punishment, because even for parents are not allowed to hit children anymore. So the Constitution will ensure that that right is enforced. Now, when we look at the limitation clause says that the Constitution can limit Section 28, but to the extent that it doesn't become unconstitutional, the right of a child. Now, let me give you an example over there. And maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit, but when it comes to criminal activity, so let's say, for example, in the madrasa situation, the father or the mother's got an apple to grind with the appa. The law is not blind to situations that you can have. So the child starts off and whatever, and all of a sudden the next day comes in, throws water over the appa's laptop. We're very modern nowadays. We work with laptops, tablets, and whatever. And the appa now finds that this child is just doing more and more things that are, aggravating me, doing things that is costing me money, or carrying out criminal activity towards me. The law, yes, you place under the onus to prove it, under the burden to prove it, but if you can prove, if that child says, and you call a meeting and the child then comes, and in the meeting the child says, oh, but my mother said I must do it. If you can prove it, then the parent can be held liable. Because then what do we have? We've got a child who, let's say, is under the age of 10 or 10 to 14, amount of culpability. But if the child says, my mother said I must do it, for example, or my father said I must do it, the law does, under the Child Justice Act, make provision for where the state can prove that that child was used as a tool to commit a criminal activity. That child can be held liable up until a certain extent, and that child will show then, in proving the case, that the adult is responsible. So let's say, for example, on Friday, you walk in, and anybody who stands at the masjid or so forth says, I see there's collection boxes, or I see when they start the Jummah Salah, the collection, Masjid Taqwa, the collection bag, lays on the left-hand side with Buta Amin. Okay, so now I know, and people are aware of the fact of the limited culpability or responsibility of children. And then they know, for lack of a better term, that children get off lightly if they commit a crime. So adults are prone to use children to commit the offense or to commit the crime. And he or she incites the child to say, go grab the bag that's got the money in, and you run out of the masjid. If that can be proved, then the child can be held liable in that circumstances. So in that circumstance, the culpability of the child is limited under Section 36 of the Constitution. And then it reads, Section 28 of our Constitution has a should be a far-reach effect on the law, that our courts held that when sentencing a primary caregiver, the rights of his or her minor children have to be considered. See, that's a case over there. M versus S, the Center for Children, as amicus curiae. Amicus curiae is just a friend court. That's a constitutional court matter that deals with the liability of children.